Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't even know I was live. Oh, man. My fault, guys. Yeah, I didn't even know I was live. I was just getting a little sparring session in. Had no idea that I was online and I was live while I was sparring. My apologies, guys. Sorry about that. I usually get a workout in from about 6:30 to about 7:55, and then I start worrying about the show. I don't really worry about the show prior to that. So with that in mind, I apologize. Guys, it's the morning of the Los Angeles Lakers basketball season about to start. Not going to lie, a little winded. Not going to lie. I threw 7 punches, and I kind of already feel it. Already kind of breathing a little bit hard right now. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Thank you for being a part of the show. Let's see here. Trying to go live on Twitter. Not happening. X, not happening. All right, we'll just go YouTube. I'll figure that out. All right. In the middle of a live show here. Top of the morning to you. As you guys know, look at the coffee steaming here. Got the coffee steaming right here. I'm no longer doing a cap. I didn't know that that's what was going to happen. It was never the intention, but I kind of like the steam on the camera, if you guys know what I mean. We got a great show lined up today, my people. I appreciate you guys hanging out very, very much, but we got a great show. Got a great show coming up here. I got to turn that one off there. It's going to be fun today. We got a Lakers season preview. So we are going to be spending a lot of time talking Lakers basketball. I know there is a lot of people out there that want Lakers basketball. And as I've been telling you guys, let's just get into the season. And we're going to spend a lot of time, obviously, on Lakers basketball and taking it from there. So we'll be doing that. Don't worry about that. I got Jovan Buha that's going to join me in about 15 minutes or so. Jovan's going to join. And if you kind of look here on the side, little Lakers season preview, how important the beginning of the season is going to be for the Lakers. You got five games on the road, 5 games at home. How aggressive will Pelinka be this year? I think that's something I have some curiosity about. And then, like I mentioned, Jovan Buha is going to join us. I will at the end. At the end, I will do a little bit baseball, talk a little bit about the Dodgers and the Yankees. I don't know if you guys know, but yeah, Dodgers, Yankees in the World Series. The Padres didn't make it, unfortunately. I don't know if you guys saw the ticket prices. Absurd ticket prices. All right, let's get started here. Do I just keep one on like all show? Like just in case somebody says something I don't like? Let's get started here. So we got Lakers start tonight. You know, I wrote down here all these different storylines that I think are going to probably be the most important storylines coming into the season. So obviously, you know, you can look at a number of different things that are of interest, but whether you like the storyline or you don't, LeBron and Bronny is going to be a storyline this year. JJ Redick, first year as the Lakers head coach, it's going to be a storyline this year. Dalton Knecht, I actually think is going to be a storyline this year. I'm curious. Him and Max Christie, but I don't know why I have a little more intrigue all of a sudden on Dalton Knecht, but I kind of do. That's going to be a storyline all season long. D'Angelo Russell. What happens to D'Lo this year? Is D'Angelo Russell, are we just going to kind of sit here and have is the same conversation that we've had in the past in regards to is he going to be a Los Angeles Laker? Is he not? Are the Lakers going to shop him? Are they not going to shop him? I think that's a fair storyline. I mean, hell, it's been the storyline the last couple of years. So I don't really think that's going to be any different than it's been in the past. I think how Lakers start the season off, I think that's going to be a story. I think there's 4 or 5 different storylines. And then you could look at, okay, Anthony Davis. All right, he's always a storyline. Where are the Lakers in the Western Conference? What are the standings like? There's a lot of storylines, but to me, those are the ones that probably stand out to me the most. And like I said, this just kind of comes with the territory of the Los Angeles Lakers. Everything is always a storyline, and that seems to be the case with the Lake Show. And it's really going to be a question of how, this Lakers team, how this front office, how the coaching staff, how they navigate all this. But at the end of the day, what you're hoping for from the Lakers, because it is the Lakers, that when the dust settles, they got a shot. And that's all you really ask for. Whatever team that you're rooting for, do you have a shot to win the whole thing? And I don't think we could sit here today on this Tuesday, October 22nd, opening day in the NBA, the Los Angeles Lakers hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't think we could look at this team and say, oh, yeah, that's a top 5 team coming into the NBA or coming into the season. That's a top 3 team in the Western Conference. I don't think that's what the Lakers are. But it doesn't mean that they can't become that as the season progresses. So as I look at all these storylines, I think the one to me that is always associated with the Lakers, are you in the mix or are you not in the mix? By the time we get to the trade deadline in February, do people feel good about where the Lakers are sitting, or is there complete panic that if they don't make a move and they don't shop those draft picks, then they're screwed? I think, at least from my standpoint, when I look at this team this year, I know at the end of the day, whatever storyline that you want to put out there, Laker fans are always going to say to themselves, we got a shot or do we not? First 10 games for the Lakers. And the only reason why I want to point this out real quick. By the way, appreciate you guys tuning in. Grab your cup of Joe here for a quick second. Oh, piping hot. Piping hot. Can I tell you guys what I did about 7:30? Let me tell you guys what I did about 7:30. And then I'll get into the schedule and then we'll keep going. And then Jovan's going to come on in about 10 minutes or so. Across the street from me is a little park. And then there's a little ramp kind of go down. And next thing you know, you're staring at the Pacific Ocean. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just go take a little walk towards the Pacific Ocean? So I went and took a walk, just listened to the waves for a little bit. Maybe I had some reggae on as well. Listened to the waves a little bit. Had the sand just under my feet. Pretty damn good feeling. I think it gave me like a little extra energy. Somebody's asking a new cup. No, not a new cup. The same cup, but no cap because I literally can't find my cap. It's a good cup of coffee right there. Good cup of Joe. Okay, so as far as the schedule goes, I think it's so critical for the Lakers. If you guys see here, my second bullet point, important start to season. I think it's so critical for the Lakers to get off to a good start. They have had so much trouble over these last couple of years. They've kind of always dig themselves a hole. By the time we get to December 1st, you're looking at the Lakers in the standings like, what the hell just happened here? Remember the first year, Darvin Ham's first year, they started out the season 2-10. 2-10. Now, the way they ended the season that first year for Darvin Ham, the way they ended the season last year, I think they closed out the year last year 18-6. Can we flip this a little bit? Can we get the Lakers off to a good start? And then all of a sudden, you don't have to shoot every bullet that you have in March and April, and you're not staring at every final game and asking. Remember, final game for the Lakers this past year. I remember actually I was doing did the pregame from here, from the studio. And I remember the Lakers were in New Orleans. Which game? They played New Orleans twice in a row. I think they did because they had the play-in as well. But there was so much on the line. You were watching 5-6 different teams, and based on their result and who was going to win this game, and if that team does this and this team's, every team had something to play for. And the Lakers, I feel like, are always in that mix. Here's the first 10 games for the Lakers. By the way, first 5, or they're going to go 5-5. 5 at home, 5 on the road. They play Minnesota tonight, couple days off. Then they go back-to-back Phoenix and Sacramento. The first 3 teams that you play right out the gate are all teams that are expected to be in the playoffs. Minnesota expected to be a real team in the Western Conference. Okay, but you got 3 at home. Then you go on the road for 5 straight games right out the gate. They're already going. They're going to go at Phoenix, at Cleveland, at Toronto. They're getting out of the way in the first week of November. I think it's November 1st. At Detroit, at Memphis, and then back home, Philly and Toronto. I'm not saying Lakers got to start 8-2, but I'm going to continue to emphasize this. I really, really, really do feel like the start of the season for the Lakers is going to be really important, because here's what's going to happen. Once this season starts, if the Lakers get off to let's say in the first 10 games, they're 3-7 or 4-6, even if it's 4-6, where it's not the end of the world, but it's also a bad start. At the absolute floor, anything under 500 through the first 10 games, you're kind of saying to yourself again, like, are we going to do this all over again? But here's what happens if they start the season out 3-7, 4-6, something like that. Then all of a sudden the questions start. Hey, is JJ Redick the right coach? Hey, what's the front office doing? Hey, you got, there's going to be panic in Lakerland, because there usually is panic in Lakerland. Hey, is the LeBron and Bronny stuff too much of a distraction? I mean, all that stuff's going to happen. The way you could just kind of shut everybody up right out the gate, 6-4, at worst 5-5. But I do think it's critical that you stop digging yourself a hole in the Western Conference that you really can't get out of. And what I'm talking about, digging yourself a hole in the Western Conference, what I really mean from anything, or what's most important to me, is I just don't want to see these guys in a position where they're back in the play-in tournament. I mean, that really, from a regular season perspective, be healthy going into the playoffs, and can you just stay out of the play-in tournament? And I really don't care what happens after that. If they're competing for that 5 or 6 or 4, 5, and 6, somewhere around there, then all right, you take your chances once you come postseason. But if it's back to 8, 9, and 10, and you got to play additional games just to get in, Bron will be 40 by then. I think it just becomes an incredible headache, and that's what the Lakers have had to deal with over the last couple of years. I'm so looking forward to the season starting, and let me tell you why I'm looking forward to the season starting. I'm looking forward, these first 10 games that I just mentioned, I also got a lot of curiosity. What is this team? What are they? How much of some of the youngsters are going to be able to contribute? If tonight the Lakers play the Minnesota Timberwolves, would there be an overreaction if they beat the Timberwolves? Sure, I get it. I understand that. That kind of comes with the territory. But would there be an overreaction? Of course there would be. But I don't really know. I can't really, at least for me, I can't take much at all out of the preseason. It's so difficult to look at this team during the preseason and say, oh, I know exactly what this team is. You can't. There's not really anything that you could take from the preseason other than, hey, Dalton Knecht had a really good game. Hey, there's some other players that might get an opportunity, but everybody's going at half speed. So once the season starts, which it will tonight, you get a look at what are the Minnesota Timberwolves? How's Anthony Edwards? I'll get into Anthony Edwards in a little bit. How's Anthony Edwards going to play? How's he going to play as really the main guy now for the Minnesota Timberwolves with Karl Anthony Towns gone? Is that team better? Is it not better? The first week, you're going to get a chance to see kind of a look at all these players on new teams, new faces on new teams. And that's the part that I think I'm most looking forward to. When I say I'm really curious about the first 10 games, give us something to react to, because I can't react to anything in the preseason. It's just assumptions, and teams aren't playing their guys. And you know that the teams that you're rooting for are playing at half speed as well. Last thing that I'm going to say, and then we'll get Jovan on here. My curiosity is also going to be with Rob Pelinka. I can't really gauge how all in the Lakers are. It's difficult to figure out how all in they are, because for about a year and a half, we've been told that they got these picks and that they're going to be aggressive in using these picks. But over the last year and a half, they clearly haven't used any picks. And listen, I don't want to fault Rob Pelinka for saying, if there's not a good move out there, I'm not going to make a move. That's responsible. That's what GM should do. President of basketball operations should do. That's exactly what they should do. And frankly, if we had 3 first rounders and we used one of those first rounders, so now we only have 2 left. If we use one of those first rounders on Dalton Knecht and this guy becomes an absolute baller, then it was a smart decision by the front office. But my curiosity when I say how all in are they? As we get closer to the trade deadline, or December 15th or January 15th, does it depend on where the Lakers are sitting on what Rob Pelinka is going to do? If they're hovering around 500, is he less likely to do something? it's impossible not to pay attention that LeBron will be 40 years old by the time January 1st comes around. Are you going to use your future assets to accommodate a 40-year-old? I don't have the answer to that. But I think that's an interesting, I think that's an interesting part of the equation that will obviously come into play this year as well. All right. Jovan will be joining us here in just a few minutes. I want to read some of your guys' comments before we have him on. All right, let's take a quick look here. Rob said he wants to see how the first 30 games go before making any trades. Yeah, I'll just say this. I think at the end of the day, no matter what, however aggressive that they are, whatever the first 30 games looks like, there's going to be a ton of pressure on him. Even if the team's not performing well, go make the team better. All right, I'm going to get some of these comments in a little bit here, but time to add one of my buddies to the show, Jovan Buha, The Athletic. What's up, brother?
How you doing?
I'm good, man. What's going on with you?
Just we're here, man. After 6 months or so, it's almost 6 months. We're here.
Yeah, that's right. What were they? Lakers were out, I think, May 1st. I think May 1st, Lakers decided that they should do it. Should do it and go start our vacation and everything else. Okay, well, first off, let me just say, I appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate you hanging out. The circumstances are a little different now. This is Sliwa just now on YouTube. Rolling up his sleeves. No more ESPN and everything else. But I appreciate you hanging out, brother. I know we've known each other for a while now. And also, by the way, congratulations. I know you got married in the off season. So look at you, a big off season acquisition there. Got the family going there. Yeah. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was the biggest off season acquisition of the off season for me.
How many draft picks? I mean. I don't know.
I had to give up some future picks. I went all in.
I like that. I had to give up some future picks. That's perfect. Well, listen, man, I hope you had a good summer. We'll kind of start with this because I remember this was, let's see when it was. It was before training camp started, and Rob Pelinka and JJ Redick were addressing the media. I remember it was actually your question. You asked the question about the draft picks, and if you want to, I'm just kind of trying to do this off the top of my head, but it was something to the effect of how will you use those picks and how aggressive and everything else. I'm just curious, as we get ready to start this season, you surprised Lakers just even through the last trade deadline, through the summer. Are you surprised they never made a deal? And by the way, you could also say you think it's incredibly responsible that Pelinka's not making moves just to appease the fan base.
I think it's a little bit of both. I've been personally surprised just because I think if you objectively look at the situation and the roster and the timeline of the superstars on this team, they are in win now mode. They might only have a couple more years of LeBron and AD together. We reported at The Athletic over the offseason that we've been hearing that LeBron was only going to play 2 more years. So if LeBron's only going to play 2 more years, then who knows with him? Maybe he pulls a Tom Brady and ends up playing to 43, 44, 45. It's certainly possible. But if you are operating under the potential assumption or potential outcome that LeBron is only playing a couple more years, logically, I think you got to go for it, right? If you think those 2 guys can still be the duo that can lead, a championship team, which I think up to this point they've proven to be. I think a couple years ago, you could have made a case that there were still some questions with the LeBron AD pairing in terms of after the Russell Westbrook situation, they missed the playoffs, and then it was kind of on the ropes there. But then 2023 make the conference finals. Last year, with this starting group, won at a mid-50s pace. So, I mean, they've been pretty close in terms of looking like a good, competent team. I just also think that this group has not looked like a championship team necessarily either. And they've needed a little bit more to help get them over the hump to be in that conversation with the true contenders. So from that perspective, I was surprised. They had as many as 3 picks that they could have traded this offseason, and they chose not to. And on the one hand, the new CBA has certainly been a factor here. And that's something that Rob Pelinka will bring up as a limiting factor with just the new salary matching and the new restrictions with the first apron and the second apron. And like that stuff certainly matters. At the same time, I remember writing this over the summer, like, he brought that up, and then immediately within the next week, Thunder trade for Alex Caruso. Denver does a salary dump trade to open up some extra cap space to try and keep KCP. Dallas ends up doing a salary dump trade to create the space that helped them acquire Klay Thompson. So like, and then, other teams were New Orleans did the DeJounte Murray trade. So it was like, on the one hand, yes, there are some more restrictions with this CBA. On the other hand, like, a lot of teams in the West made moves this summer, and Denver, it didn't work out. They didn't get to keep KCP, but they dumped Reggie Jackson and at least went for it. So for the Lakers, I think the thing that was the most surprising to me was like the back end of the roster to me is problematic. I think there are several players that you don't want to rely on in a rotation setting or situation. And they could have done a salary dump trade and attached a second round pick to get rid of a Cam Reddish or a Maxwell Lewis or split at least one of the Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, and to dump one or two of those guys and create an open roster spot to sign a Gary Trent or Spencer Dinwiddie and just beef up the back end of this roster. Because I like the top 9, top 10, but they're already down a couple of those guys. Then if Rui's been dealing with a calf situation, Austin's been dealing with an ankle situation, you miss another one of those guys, and all of a sudden you do have to start relying on the Cam Reddish, the JHS, or something like that. And I don't think those guys should be in a team that fancies itself a contender. I don't think they should be in the rotation. So that's I guess I know I kind of went a couple different ways with that, but to me, I think they need to make a move at some point. I don't think this group, as currently constructed, can win a championship personally. I think they could be really good. I think they can win 50-plus games. I think they can win a round or two. But I do think at some point, come January or February, the Lakers likely have to make a move.
Yeah, I mean, if the Lakers are, like you just said, if all of a sudden they lose some depth and you're asking Jalen Hood-Schifino to come in and fill in some minutes, yeah, that's not good. It's not, and probably even unfair for him. He needs to be on a team where he can play 20, 25 minutes a game, and it doesn't matter how he does. That's not going to be the case for the Lakers. Just using him as an example. You said you like the top 9, top 10 guys. As we get ready to start the season, let's assume this Lakers team is healthy. I know that's an assumption that every team hopes for when the season starts, but let's say Vando is good to go. Let's say Rui's not having any issues. Let's say that top 9, 10 players are solid. They're healthy. What is that team in the Western Conference? Just how good do you feel about the way this roster has been constructed? We're accustomed to the roster as well, because a lot of these players have been on this Lakers team now for minimum year and a half or a lot longer. What do you make of that top 10?
I like it. So I've been saying, like, I see the Lakers as having, to me, there's a clear top 4 in the West. I think you could put them in any order. For me personally, the order is OKC, Denver, Dallas, Minnesota. But I think those 4 teams have distanced themselves from the rest of the conference. I think all 4 of those teams are going to win 50-plus games easily and could potentially even be in the mid-50s. OKC, I actually have winning 60-plus games this year. I'm really high on them. They won 57 last year. They were the number 1 seed, top 5 in offense and defense. I know this is not an OKC show, but I'm just putting that out there.
They got better, too.
Yeah. Hartenstein's injured now for a few weeks, so that could maybe lower their win total a little bit. But, like, adding Caruso and Hartenstein, basically not losing. I mean, they lost Josh Giddey, but he was unplayable at times in their playoff run. So, like, okay, like I think there's a top 4 in the West. I think the rest of the conference, like spots 5 to 8 in the playoff mix, are wide open. And I think the Lakers could grab spot number 5. So currently I have them projected as the number 6 seed for next season. I'm just leaving a little bit of wiggle room for worse injury luck, because if you look at the top 4 guys on the team, LeBron, AD, Austin, and D'Lo, those guys were about as healthy last season as realistically possible. So I assume at least one of those 4 guys will not be as healthy as last season. And that's where, they could be winning at like a 52, 53 win pace, but then you miss one of those guys for a few extra games and that knocks down a couple wins or whatever. So right now I tentatively have them as like 49 and 33 and the 6th seed in the Western Conference. But I think they're right there in terms of having the 5th highest upside in the conference. Because if you look at it, with Rui next to those 4 starters, or with Vando next to those 4 starters, over the last year and a half, with either player, they've won at a mid-50s pace. So that to me shows like, I mean, it's simple, but when they play their best lineups and they weren't playing these undersized groups, or they weren't starting Taurean Prince at the 3, the Lakers have been winning at a mid-50s pace. So like, I'm not saying they're going to be a 55-win team, but I do think they have the upside to be like a 51, 52-win team. And then if you knock off some games for injuries, that's where you get into like the high 40s. So I think I like Dalton Knecht showed me something in that Phoenix game. I think Max Christie has looked like a rotation level wing. Gabe Vincent has had some flashes of looking more like the Miami guy. And then, I think Christian Jackson, those are like fringe 9th, 10th guys in the rotation. But once they get Vando back and Christian back eventually, like I think they're cooking with something good. So I think, 5th it's not like the sexiest thing, but if you're the 5th seed or even the 6th seed, you got a shot, depending on the matchup, to at least go on win a round or 2 in the playoffs.
Yesterday, I was power rankings that come out on ESPN. I think they had Lakers at 8th in the Western Conference. They had Phoenix ahead of them. They had Golden State ahead of them. And then the rest of the 4 that you were talking about. And I came on here and it was kind of, it's interesting how similar we were on our take, because I think 6th is realistic in the Western Conference, and maybe it's just me. I like them against Phoenix. I like them against the Golden State Warriors. But I think 6th is realistic. And I know what you just said about, hey, 5th or 6th, that doesn't sound all that sexy. I think a lot of Laker fans are probably sitting back saying, oh, take that in a heartbeat, especially because think about these games in March and April. The last couple of years, Lakers are, even though they finished the season off strong, but man, they got to shoot every single bullet just to get into that play-in, or just to position themselves to not have to win 2 straight games to get out of the play-in. I think 5th or 6th, I think a lot of Laker fans would certainly sign up for that. Just to play off of that for a quick second. How important do you think it is? And I know everyone's going to say, yeah, it's very important, but specifically for the Lakers, why are these first 10, 15, 20 games, do you think, more important for the Lakers than it is for some of these other teams, especially keeping in mind how slow starts that they've got off to?
Well, as I joined, you were talking about Rob Pelinka and that 30-game mark, which would be like, I believe their 31st game is their first game after the new year. So basically looking at the new year as a rough timeline to judge this team, I think those first 30 games are going to tell us a lot in terms of, and actually historically, if you go season over season, and there are exceptions, of course, but like typically around Christmas time, if you look at the Western Conference standings, unless a team makes a big trade or suffers a big injury, the Western Conference standings, and Eastern Conference as well, like the playoff standings are typically similar to what they are at Christmas time. Like you kind of know what a team is 25, 30 games in, and there will be some exceptions of maybe a team goes from like 10th to 7th, or
they make a big trade or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But for the most part, if you look at like the top 8, at least 6 of those teams are going to be in the playoffs come April, if not 7 or 8 of them. So at that point, we will have a better understanding of the Lakers, and they have a brutal schedule to start, because they had the 6 games on the preseason. 6 road games to start the preseason. So they've not yet played a game at Crypto.com Arena. Tonight will be the first time they play at Crypto during this season. And then they start with 3 home games, but they have a back-to-back with the Kings being the second night of the back-to-back, a team that the Lakers have really struggled against, gone 7-1 over the past 2 seasons. 1-7. The Kings have gone 7-1 against them over the past 2 seasons. And then they go on a 5-game road trip, which starts off against Phoenix and Cleveland, 2 really, really good teams. And it gets a little bit easier. But they still got Memphis, which is a team that a lot of people are high on. I've seen some people say Memphis is coming out of the West or making the conference finals. So, like, Lakers have a pretty tough slate. If you include the preseason, 11 of their first 14 games are on the road, and then 2 of those 3 home games are a back-to-back set. So, like, and really the preseason one was a back-to-back as well, which is nuts. But, like, so to start the season, they're not done any favors in terms of the schedule. So, like, I look at that first 5-game slate of Minnesota tonight, then Phoenix Friday, Sacramento Saturday, then Phoenix again to start the road trip, then Cleveland. Like, those 5 games alone, I predicted it. I did Spectrum last night. I predicted them going 3-2. I think that Lakers would take that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have them losing tonight against Minnesota, and then losing first game in Phoenix, and then beating Phoenix, Sacramento, and Cleveland. But, like, it's going to be tough, right? So I think those first 15, 20 games, Austin talked about it yesterday at practice. He was like, we've gotten off to slow starts the last couple of seasons, and then we've had to play catch up. And I think if you go back the last few years, like, this team has got off to slow starts in the preseason, and then it has carried over into the regular season. So depending on how you look at it, 2-4 was not the best preseason result. I do like a lot of the process. I do think that the competitive parts in terms of the first halves that they played their guys, they looked pretty good. So I think they're maybe entering with better vibes, more momentum than previous seasons. But those first 15, 20, 30 games are going to be vital for this group, because you don't want to fall behind in this West. This West goes 11, 12, potentially even 13 deep. If Wemby takes a step, if Kawhi gets healthy at some point, you can make a case there's 13 teams for 10 play-in spots. So Lakers cannot get out to like a 8-7 start. They need to be 10-5 and go from there.
Yeah, there's I think the West in general, not only do you have the competition that you have, you're right, Houston's going to be good. I think they're going to be better this year. San Antonio will be in some shape, way, or form, I think, a headache in whatever regards that is. But then you also just got teams like playing the Lakers. So it doesn't matter who's playing the Lakers, whether you're at home, whether you're on the road, whether it's an East Coast team, it's a West Coast team. Obviously, everybody gets up to play the Lakers. What your thoughts so far on JJ? I think for a lot of Laker fans, and I'm sure for a lot of the league, there's curiosity about JJ Redick. But actually, I'll ask 2 questions on this. Number one, what has been have you noticed a difference as far as training camp goes? And I'm not trying to compare. Darvin Ham was the last coach, but stylistically, how different is it? And just your overall thoughts on the new coach.
It's been very different stylistically. I think JJ has approached, it's been a breath of fresh air in terms of his approach with players, according to the players, but also I would say with us in terms of just being very transparent and open about his strategy, open about his lineups, like naming the starting lineup before the season, and essentially naming the 9-man rotation when he's like, I'm going to play 9 guys in the first half tonight, and that I'm going with a 9-man rotation, and then he plays the 9 guys, and we know who the 9 guys are. So, like, I think already we have a sense of who are the guys he trusts, who are the guys on the fringes or the outside of the rotation, and what does he want to do stylistically. So he's incorporated a lot more off-ball movement. They have a lot more 3-man actions. Last year, this was a team that ran a lot of pick and roll, and there still will be pick and roll elements to this offense, but they've incorporated a lot more 3-man action and a lot more off-ball cutting and movement and dribble handoff actions. They've had AD handle the ball more and be that facilitator, that hub around the elbow, top of the arc. So offensively, I've seen a lot of progress, and I've and already I've said this before, but the Lakers were a top 3 offense over the final 40 plus games of the season. So it's not like they needed all this, these grand changes offensively. It was more of just, really focusing on the types of shots that they were getting, and just more shots at the rim and more shots from beyond the arc. And so far, they've gotten more threes. At the rim could get better, and that's something that I do think once the regular season starts, they will figure that out and get back to kind of playing the way they typically play. But some of the mid-range stuff that some of their best players like to do, I think they could wean some of that out of their shot diet. And if they do that, they have a chance to be the best offense in the league, I think. I don't think they will, but I think top 5 over the course of an 82-game season rather than being 15th overall last year is a realistic thing. So I've liked the offense. Defensively, I think that's where most of my questions are with this group, to be honest. And Vando being out certainly doesn't help, but I just don't know if we're looking at that top 9 of the starters, Gabe, Max, Jackson, and Dalton, how many of those guys are plus defenders that you can rely on a daily or nightly basis? And to me, it might just be AD, Max, and Gabe. And the problem is 2 of those guys are Gabe's a smaller guard. Max is a solid size wing, but kind of on the smaller side, at least compared to guys who are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". So 2 of those guys are 6'6" and under. And then AD is obviously all world, arguably the best defender in the game. But I do wonder, looking at that rotation, what's the defensive ceiling? I think their defensive, most likely outcome is probably being a below average defense. And if you're really good offensively, you can kind of make up that gap. But if you're 11th in offense and 20th in defense, now all of a sudden we're talking about a fringe kind of playing low tier playoff team. So that to me is kind of going to be how does JJ figure out the defense? Because I think that they do have guys who can get blown by, guys who struggle with rotations, guys who struggle rebounding. We saw that at times in the preseason. And so right now, that's my biggest question.
It's funny. And I was talking about this as well. I think as much as we try to figure out, I think I know what this team is preseason basketball. And the fact that you have a brand new head coach in there. Yes, there are some different players. I'll be curious. My next question is going to be about Dalton Knecht. How much opportunity is he going to get? What kind of impact does he have? Your head coach stylistically, how much different is it than your previous head coach? But that's why it's once we get to this point where it's all right, now these games matter. We don't need to guess. And I know we'll get little bit of, we'll get 10 or 15 minutes, or we'll get a first half with the starters, but how much do they really care in a preseason game? How much can you pretend like you care? And then the regular season starts. So I think we're going to get a lot more questions answered over the next couple of weeks or so. It was a preseason game, but Dalton Knecht went off for 35. And what do you have? 25, I think, in the fourth quarter and overtime. Aside from, that one performance, what about his game you think will translate instantly into I could be a contributor in the NBA? Because he's 23 years old. This will be his first year in the NBA. He's got a huge advantage over guys that just came in and they're 19. So I think that part is obviously great. But why do you think he could come in and be immediately impact the Lakers?
Because I think he's a 3-level scorer. I think we saw that. I don't want there's always the caveats of preseason, garbage time, playing against third string opponents. But how many guys could get as hot as Dalton Knecht just got from beyond the arc and hit some of the ridiculous threes that he hit? I think there are star players that could not have done what he did, and it's not to say he's necessarily going to. Yeah, it's not to say necessarily he's going to become a star, but JJ Redick has said that he views Dalton as a top 1% shooter, and that to me is really the trait that's going to come in and make a difference. And it's let's go back over the last few years. How many times have the Lakers had that player in the weak side corner, weak side wing, spotting up, and the ball gets kicked to them, the ball gets swung to them, and they miss an open or semi-contested three. I think Dalton's going to make those shots at a very high rate. I think he's going to be like, if you're giving him open catch and shoot jumpers, I think he's going to be low to mid 40s on those types of shots. And then on top of that, you have the movement element, which we've seen of you can use him in all these creative ways coming off screens. And the difference between him and even say his coach, JJ Redick, was JJ could maybe pump fake, put the ball on the ground, take a dribble or two and hit like a pull-up jumper. Dalton
but he's not sizing up. He's not sizing up guys in the league.
He's not. Dalton could do that, but he could also go dunk on you, or he could go attack the rim and try and dunk on you and get a foul. So Dalton's athleticism, his size, and just his ability to attack you at all three levels, I think are going to make him a valuable weapon for the Lakers. I also think he showed some dirty work in the preseason that we did not necessarily see in summer league. So the rebounding, he was getting his hands dirty and getting in there for offensive rebounds, for defensive rebounds, and then also defensively, while he can be blown by on the perimeter. And that's, to me, the biggest concern with him is just like, I think teams are going to target him. It's like, I remember LeBron would always do this to Luke Kennard in the Lakers-Clippers matchups, and now Lakers-Grizzlies matchups, where LeBron will
give me that screen, ISO, top of the key.
Who's Luke Kennard guarding? Bring him into the action, and then they either have to trap, and that sets off a 4-on-3, or they're going to switch, and then now all of a sudden LeBron can attack Luke Kennard. So I think teams are going to do that to Dalton. We've already seen them do that to him a little bit in the preseason. However, with him as the backline guy, like I thought against the Bucks, he was rotating against Giannis and like trying to block Giannis, and he fouled him a couple times. But I was like, that showed me something. Like there's certain guys that will make the business decision. I don't want to get dunked on, or like I don't want to absorb the contact from Giannis, and like I'm just gonna get out of the way. He's gonna get a dunk, and let's go score on the other end. So like Dalton got his hands dirty in a way that I think sometimes shooters aren't. If we're kind of stereotyping shooters, sometimes they just want to shoot the ball and not do anything else. And like Dalton showed me something with also his playmaking. I think he's had some nice assists, some nice passes. So like there's more there than just the shooting, just the scoring. And for him, if he can continue to do what he's doing offensively, but also mix in some rebounding and some defense, and at least focus on that end of the floor and not be like a glaring liability, then I think this is a guy whose role is only going to continue to grow throughout the season. And if he continues to shoot like that, he's going to find himself playing 20, 25 minutes sooner than later, just because the Lakers need that. And there might not be, other than D'Lo, there might not be another guy capable of getting like that hot and swinging a game.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I think a lot of it, I noticed it too, and obviously specifically in that preseason game, but he's had the green light basically all preseason, which tells me they're trying to get him as comfortable as he possibly can, because they are going to need him in the regular season. But there's a certain kind of, and I say this as a compliment. I don't know if arrogance is the right way to put confidence. Maybe I think that's the best term. He was looking at other NBA players in front of him like, it doesn't really matter who's in front of me. I'm going to do what I do. And it wasn't just I came off a screen and I hit a jumper. It was, let me take you off the dribble. Let me take you, what was that fast break that he was on? Kind of 1-on-2, goes up, scores, and gets fouled, kind of iced the game against the Suns. He did little things. Even his interaction, I thought, I don't know if you noticed this, even his interaction with his own players, when he's going back to the bench and Rui and AD and LeBron and everybody's, cheering for him, what he was doing. The kind of look on his face wasn't, I'm excited. The look on his face was like, yeah, this is what I do. Little things like that, I felt like, was standing out. Now, listen, the regular season may start, and maybe he doesn't have nearly as much impact as we're hyping him up to be. But no, I think there's something there. I think a lot of people do. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about him being one of the steals of the draft. Lakers got the Timberwolves tonight. I'm just curious on your thoughts. What'd you make of the Minnesota trade, trading away Karl Anthony Towns, getting Julius Randle, and DiVincenzo? What did you make of that specific trade? And You think it improves them? You think it hurts them? What do you think?
So I was against the trade from the Minnesota side initially. I think since then I've come more around to it. I think DiVincenzo, like to me, Karl Anthony Towns served a particular purpose with the Timberwolves. Obviously, he's got the pedigree being like the number one pick and was the franchise guy for a few years there. But to me, it was more so like if you're gonna play another big who's somewhat of a defensive liability next to Rudy Gobert, that player needs to be able to space the floor. And Julius Randle is capable of making threes, but he's never really been that type of catch and shoot spot up guy that Karl Anthony Towns was at times last season. And obviously they'd stagger and split up the Rudy Cat minutes. But for the times they're on the floor, I feel like that needs to be Julius Randle's role to some extent. And that does limit what Julius Randle can do offensively. And if not, and if you're going to have him operate on the block, then what are you doing with Rudy Gobert? And maybe there's creative ways to use him as more of a dribble handoff like hub guy, or try to use him in that way. And then Randle's the guy kind of closer to the basket. But I at first I didn't love it from that perspective of just like Randle's also a bit of a ball stopper, where like, yes, he can get his, and yet he's actually a pretty underrated passer, but he is a guy who likes to dribble the ball 4, 5, 6 dribbles, kind of, look at his man, look at the defense. And I think Cat is a little bit of a quicker decision maker there. So offensively, I had some concerns, but the Timberwolves have actually crushed it in the preseason. I believe they led the Western Conference in points in the preseason. The 3-point shooting has been much better, and the caveats all apply, as I like to say anytime we're analyzing the preseason. But like Dante DiVincenzo to me has been the X factor here, where it wasn't just the Julius Randle Karl Anthony Towns trade. It was also a Dante DiVincenzo trade. So that's a guy who I think has really excelled as this 3-and-D guard who, I mean, we saw it in the playoffs during the Knicks run, but like he can get hot, hit 4, 5, 6 threes any given night. He could defend either backcourt spot. He's tough. He's a really good rebounder for a guy who's like 6'4", 6'5". So I actually really like the DiVincenzo piece. I think their top 8 makes more sense and is deeper. It's still going to be figuring out, though, Gobert, Randle, Naz Reid. Like, are there certain matchups where you go with one of those guys, or there's certain matchups where you go with 2, and then one of those guys is a little bit upset? Because I think it was one thing with Cat where, again, he was the face of the franchise for several years, former number 1 pick. But so Naz Reid, I think, it's like, okay, you bring in Gobert, you bring in Cat, but like I'm sure on some level Naz Reid wants to be playing more, thinks he should be playing more, and probably deserves to be playing more. So it's like, how do you kind of figure out that center rotation? It kind of reminds me of Bynum, Gasol, Odom, not on the same level, but like sort of that how do you kind of figure out like who's starting, who's closing, who's playing how many minutes? And Minnesota kind of has their own version of that. So with Cat, I think it was a little bit different just because of his stature. With Randle, while he is a former All-Star, I don't think he carries as much weight, obviously, within the organization. But so far, Minnesota's actually looked pretty good offensively. They look better offensively. So I think this was a team that was the best defense in the league by a mile. I think Randle is a downgrade because he's not as big. I thought Cat defended Jokic well in the playoffs and post defense and stuff. So I think there's a chance they maybe take a step back defensively. But if they take a big step up offensively, maybe they end up being a better team. So I've actually come around to it after initially being a bit skeptical.
Yeah, I'm very curious because I was mixed when that deal went down. I'm like, wait, Karl Anthony Towns is gone. I understand his contract. I understand we all use the term apron and kind of that's the term being used around the NBA. They get to the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, they're in a great position to compete right now, and then Cat's gone. So I got a lot of curiosity as well. Jovan, I'll close it out with this one. And, I appreciate you coming on and hanging out. So I appreciate you doing a little Lakers season preview here. Anthony Edwards, what's his kind of next development? I think he's one of, whether you're a fan of the Minnesota Timberwolves or not, Ant is becoming more of just like a must watch I want to watch that guy play. And if there's a game on in the NBA and it's Minnesota versus you pick the team, I might just stop and watch because Anthony Edwards is on that team. What's his growth this year, and just kind of what do you think Ant's next level is?
I think the next level for him is similar to the next level we saw guys like Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard get to in terms of their playmaking, where those guys came in and they were not natural playmakers. Like, not everybody is a LeBron James. That's a one of one in terms of being a playmaking scoring wing. And so I think with Ant, the next level is like, how does he make his teammates better more consistently? And I think we've seen flashes of that. We saw flashes of it during that Western Conference Finals run, but I don't think he's quite at that level that he needs to be in terms of being a playmaker and a primary ball handler / facilitator to run an offense. And, I mentioned they had the league's best defense, but they were the 17th best offense last season. And in part, that was because, like, I think there's a bit of a ceiling there if Ant, different animal, or if Ant is your best scorer / shot creator, I think there's been a bit of a ceiling there, and they were able to overcome that in the playoffs because he won. I mean, he had some crazy games and some monster performances. So, like, obviously, like the potential is there for him to be. I don't know if the best player in the league is, like, maybe the best player in the league. I still think Jokic, Doncic, Giannis, Wemby's coming, like Shea. Like, there's a lot of competition for that distinction, but I think he could be in that conversation and certainly be a top 5 guy. But for him, to me, he's got the defense. He could defend 1 through 3. He's got the athleticism. He's got the scoring. We've seen the 30, 40-point nights, even in the playoffs. To me, the final thing for him is, like, how do I – because it was a lot of just when you double him, when you throw a lot of attention at him, that's when you see the turnovers. That's when you see him forcing things. That's when you see the bad shots. So if he can understand how to read a defense and the layers of a defense better, and like the Timberwolves also, it's partly on the coaching staff, partly on their offense, to like figure out, okay, if they're defending Ant a certain way and throwing this much attention at him, what are the best ways to kind of counter that and attack that? So that to me is the next level for him, is like, if he can be consistently like a 5 or 6 assist a night guy, and maybe even like 7 when it really matters, that unlocks him as just like a different level of an offensive weapon.
Yeah, there were times in the playoffs, and look, this is going to come with experience, right? Times in playoffs where you're right, they throw a double team at him and he doesn't really know what to do. Okay, well, now he's going to have seen that, have that experience of whatever look that was. There are times where, no, and this is where you become more aggressive, not less aggressive. He'll have those opportunities, kind of figure out what that is. And I don't know with Cat not being there anymore, but certainly, like you said, there was Cat was the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was drafted by the Timberwolves and had been there for that entire process for them to get to that point of the Western Conference. He's gone now. So you can basically just say this is Ant's team. There are other players that are there as well that obviously have a lot of impact. But yeah, I'm it's funny. You hear some of his quotes at such a young age. And what was it in the Olympics? He was saying that USA basketball, kind of everything runs through him. KD's on that team. Steph's on that team. LeBron's on that team. Go down the list of all these other players, and he's saying that. And I think it's intriguing. I think it's fascinating. But what he can't do is, he's only 23. He can't rush his experience is just going to come, and that's just going to come based off of more games in the league. Are you ready for tonight, brother?
I'm ready, man. I'm excited. It feels like Christmas is here with with NBA basketball. We get the. I mean, we've seen it the last few weeks, but we get the real deal tonight.
No. Yeah, now it's
no ring night, no 30-minute delay to start the game.
Get started.
Lakers are at home. We just get into it.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We'll see you soon over at Crypto, and we'll talk soon. All right, buddy?
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Jovan. Thank you, brother. All right, Jovan Buha right there. The man, I love having that dude on. Dude's done such a good job in his career so far. He's a youngster. He's hustling. He's got certainly a lot of trust. So he's making it happen. So compliments to him. I like to see that from good people out there making it happen in the industry. He's a good dude. All right. There are so many freaking comments, and I haven't got a chance to look at really any of them. So my apologies on that. I'm going to get to some of your comments. I want to plug in a couple things as well. The Anthony Edwards, Kawhi Leonard. I got two things on here, and then I don't know if you guys seen the ticket prices for the Yankees and the Dodgers. All right, let me see what we got here. I'll look at a couple of these comments best I can. I saw something on here. A lot of people were saying, hey, give Dalton Knecht some time. He's just a rookie. Don't get too excited about him. Let me say something real quick about Dalton Knecht and as we get ready for the season to start. You're right. I think there are a lot of people right now that are overly hyped on Dalton Knecht, but I think there's something real there. So whether it's in the first 10 games, the first 30 games, first half of the season, or later in the season, I think we're going to see some impact from Dalton Knecht on this Lakers team. So it's not about getting too hyped about him. It's actually just seeing like, hey, I think this guy can be an asset for the Lakers this year. So I'm excited about that. I think one of the things that Jovan mentioned early on when we were doing that, we had the conversation about how the first 30 games are going to dictate. Somebody actually put that in the comments as well. How the first 30 games are going to dictate what Rob Pelinka does and what the Lakers front office does. It's so critical to just at least paint a picture. This team and this roster through these first 30 games have to paint a picture that they can hang with any of these teams in the Western Conference, but they're going to need a little bit more help. And then it's up to the front office to then go put them over the top. But being in that top 6, top 5, top 6 in the Western Conference, and by the time January 1st comes around, you almost got to convince that front office, and it's on that front office. It's going to be on their back. Go get us some help. Find what it is that we exactly need and take it from there. The one question I didn't ask, I wanted to get his opinion on just the mood of D'Angelo Russell, and if D'Lo has basically just kind of ignored all that chatter and that trade talk, because that dude's had to deal with a lot over the last couple of years as a Los Angeles Laker. Whether you're a fan of his or you're not a fan of his, I don't really care. But that guy's name is always brought up at the trade deadline. And to be honest with you, I don't know if that's going to be any different this upcoming year. Okay. Couple quick things, and then I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you guys some of the ticket prices. Okay, so the Anthony Edwards front, I'm a fan of his game. Hoops Hype did the top 10 players in the NBA. I think they ranked the entire NBA. They had Anthony Edwards. That's what the Lakers have tonight. They had him at number 10. That dude is real deal. Everybody knows he's real deal. You know what I'm curious about Anthony Edwards? He's now all of a sudden going to become the face and the franchise of that team. Karl Anthony Towns isn't there. We were just talking about it. And tonight, Lakers will take on the Timberwolves. By the way, Sammy Long did a really, really good preview video for tonight's game. So if you go back on the channel, he put it up last night. So that's on there if you want just a preview for tonight's game. But looking at tonight's game specifically, I'm not sure if this trades. I don't know. I know the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to be good. But I don't know if the Minnesota Timberwolves, I hesitate to say that they got better without Karl Anthony Towns. So this is, even for this team and this first game that the Lakers play, there's a little bit of take advantage of the opportunity that Minnesota is going to need time to figure out this roster and Julius Randle and what the rotations are going to look like and Dante DiVincenzo. And I like what Jovan was mentioning about what's the rotation going to look like with Naz Reid, who's an absolute baller. You might be able to kind of take advantage. You're facing Minnesota early before they get a chance to kind of get into some type of groove. But Ant is the man, no question about it. He's got more confidence than anybody else out there. But the question I think is going to be for him, what's his development going to be? How long is it going to take him for him to be comfortable in that role, make the right decisions? We'll get our first chance at Anthony Edwards tonight, so I'm looking forward to it. Okay, real quick here. All right, let's see what we got here. Kawhi Leonard. I didn't get a chance to talk about Kawhi, and since the season is about to start, I want to talk about Kawhi real quick. Can I ask everybody a quick question here on Kawhi Leonard? Why do I feel like there's a negative energy towards Kawhi? I feel like from fans, there's a negative energy towards Kawhi. What let me read the story. So this came out late last week. Kawhi Leonard sidelined indefinitely to begin the NBA season as he rehabs from inflammation in his right knee. Ty Lue said there's no timeline. Like we said from day one, it's going to take some time. He's going to progress. He's doing all the right things. He's working hard and he's looking good. I feel like there's a negative energy towards Kawhi Leonard. And I got to be honest with everybody. I don't know if I really understand it. Maybe because Kawhi Leonard has been associated with the load management. Maybe Kawhi Leonard because how he left San Antonio. Maybe Laker fans just say, well, Kawhi Leonard didn't sign with the Lakers. He signed with the Los Angeles Clippers. If you really look back at Kawhi Leonard's career, it's been an incredible career. What Kawhi Leonard has been able to accomplish, I want to defend Kawhi because I feel bad that this dude is, where he is in his career. He's only 33 years old. I have no idea how much longer he's going to be able to play at an elite level. Maybe we've seen the best of him, and that's it. You're never going to see what Kawhi Leonard was. But think about what this guy has accomplished. It's not like he was a top 5 pick or a top 2 pick. He was 15th overall. If you remember, he was 15 overall. I think there was a trade with the Pacers and the San Antonio Spurs early on. Guy's a 2-time NBA champion. He's a 2-time Finals MVP. He won an NBA championship for the Toronto Raptors, for the love of God. And when he was at an elite level, he was usually talked about as one of the best two-way players in the NBA. I don't think people should have a negative energy on Kawhi Leonard. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. Maybe that's not the case, but I feel like that's the case. This is one of the best players of his generation. And no, he's not LeBron. No, he's not Kevin Durant. No, he's not Steph Curry, but he's not too far from a lot of those players of what he's been able to accomplish in his career. I feel bad for the guy. I really do. For him to be out indefinitely, that's unfortunate for him individually because he is a great player. He does play both sides of the ball. And I know for those who talk about load management, wasn't there a reason why he was doing this? I mean, he was probably doing this because look at his career. He's been battling health issues for a number of years. And I genuinely, when I saw that news, I felt bad for him. I felt bad for him because he is a good player. He is a player that, what he's going to be the rest of the way at age 33, I have no idea. But clearly, that dude's knee and the issues that he's had with his knee is obviously unfortunate. All right, Pete Fox says Raptors were stacked, Spurs were stacked. But what does that have to do with anything? Okay. So do we take credit away from him because the teams were stacked? Like I don't know what the argument is there. Okay, so they were stacked. So does that mean we should take something away from LeBron because his teams were stacked in Miami? Should we take something away from Steph Curry because his Warriors teams were stacked? Should we take something away from Kobe and Shaq because their teams were stacked? I don't know what that means. They were stacked. That's okay. Being stacked is part of it. Kawhi, similar to Grant Hill, just injuries derailed an all-time great career. I'll tell you what the difference is with Kawhi Leonard. I think the fact that he's already won a couple of chips. So he doesn't need to be – I saw somebody put in here Brandon Roy. His career was cut way short. But think of like the Tracy McGrady's, think of the Grant Hills, guys that never won championships. Kawhi won 2 championships. Kawhi was a 2-time Finals MVP. Not too many players you could say that were able to do that in the NBA. So, listen, I know that's the Clippers, but I don't like to see individuals injured. I clearly don't want to see Kawhi Leonard injured. We'll see what happens there. And to be honest with you, I don't know what the hell the Clippers are going to be this year. I don't think they're going to be much. Okay, last thing I want to do here. I love Brandon Roy. He was a complete baller, absolute baller. All right, let me show you guys something real quick. Let's see here. Share screen. Guys looking for some tickets? Just Venmo me. If you guys want to get out to a couple of these Dodgers-Yankees games, just send me a Venmo and just trust me. I will handle it for you. Okay, that's not happening. Do you see these freaking tickets? Are you guys looking at the same thing I'm looking at here? Look at the tickets to get into Dodger Stadium game 1 on Friday. 5:08 first pitch, not 5:05. Not 5 freaking 10. Not 5:15 and not 5 o'clock. 5:08 first pitch. Tickets start at $1,155. Let me tell you guys, I went to game 1 of the Padres and the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. Game 1 I went. I paid $113 for my ticket. I just got in. I was like, all right, let me just get in. I'll figure it out from there. Basically ended up standing up the entire game. $113 is what I paid. For the same ticket right now, it's $1,155. You want to go to game 2? $1,205. If you want to go to game 1 at Yankee Stadium in New York, it's just under $1,500 just to get in. That's freaking crazy. I'm going to hallucinate with the start times. 5:08, 5:08, 8:08, 8:08, 8:08, 5:08. I can't do it. I can't do it. All right, my people. Great show today. I appreciate you guys hanging out. I appreciate you guys spending what was it, an hour plus hanging out with me. Did you guys come in? For those who weren't in there for the intro, I had my gloves on. I'd be like, Slee, what are you talking about? What do you mean you had your gloves on? No, I had my gloves on. I had real gloves on. Today I wasn't messing around. I had real gloves on. It's opening night. I'm excited about it. I think a lot of Laker fans are obviously excited about it as well. If you're just joining the show right now or you're listening and it's not live, Jovan Buha was great. Got into a lot of good stuff. I'm trying to see here. Just trying to find one more thing here before the show comes to an end here. But definitely be back tomorrow, and I will be, obviously recapping the game and everything else. Just so other people know, just so everybody kind of has an idea, I am still going to be doing a post-game show. It wasn't my plan. I thought maybe I'll do this and then maybe not have to do post. But I think I got to keep doing post-game. I know I got a lot of people on this channel that have been with me because of the post-game show. So I will continue to do the post-game show. So as soon as the game ends tonight, I'll be doing talking some Lakers basketball. All right. But I have a sparring session that I got to get to real quick. I go 9 rounds. Basically, right when I'm done here, I do 9 rounds with a couple heavyweights, couple chumps that I go to, and I handle business. All right, y'all. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your cup of coffee. Hopefully you guys are off to a great morning and a great start to your day. Go make it happen. You got to keep your hands up. Yep, you got to keep your hands up when you're boxing. All right, y'all. Have a great rest of your day. See if Lakers can make it happen tonight. Get back with you guys tonight. Post-game show tonight. All right, guys.